Welcome to another episode of the Nashville Dads. On this episode, we have on Jared Braucht. We talk about having kids later on in life, growing up in the Midwest and all your friends having kids, his life in Fort Collins, and his job as a speech pathologist and how his training helps him to be a better parent. We really hope you enjoy the episode.
I was kind of thinking about it coming on. I'm like, God, is this going to be like what therapy is like? So I'm just going to talk about myself and we're going to figure it all out for me.
Yeah. That's it. No, that's the biggest note for this is that I will not tell you how to be a better father. I will just make you aware of what type of father you are, and what you do with that realization is up to you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it better be good, man. It better be good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So no, it's a very fun thing to do because, I mean, even if you're not a dad, the older you get, people who just ask you like, hey, how's it going? Isn't usually a common thing. So
yeah, this is true. Yeah. There's less space for that. As we get older, definitely. And, you make that with specific relationships, definitely, but it's more commonly, less common as you get older, more commonly just with real close friends. And it's not like something that gets to come to the surface all the time, definitely. Yeah.
Nope. And I think some of it's warranted because I'm not trying to be like a bitch, but you have to earn my vulnerability to some extent. So you do have to be trustworthy of it, of who you want to let your walls down for, because that's the other thing that makes it harder to be vulnerable. As the older you get, the more examples you have of the times in which you were vulnerable and you felt like you were betrayed or you were hurt or something like that. So your circle just gets naturally smaller.
Yeah, so that is, and that's how we keep ourselves happy, right? If we don't react that way, then that can be detrimental too, So it's a natural defense.
I very much believe, I don't think there's a problem with having walls up. I think there's a problem if I'm not willing to discuss why I have my walls up,
Sure, right. Yeah.
So if my wife is like, why don't you want to talk about this? And I'm like, I don't know. Then it's like, there's no growth from that answer. There's just a wall that I've put up to a relationship that I want to have growth.
Yeah. So. And that can be an honest answer too. It can be, I'm going to think about that now and let's put a pin in this until later.
Yes. And I don't know about you, but I always assume I should know the answer to a question, regardless of what the question is. It's embedded in me of why is this happening? I'm like, why don't I know the answer? And it's like, Devin, you have no frame of reference for this question.
Yeah.
Why is your immediate assumption that if you don't know the answer, your value is less?
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, man. I'm pretty comfortable just being like, don't know, not sure, let me Google it real fast.
Yes.
Why am I sad?
Why am I sad today? I don't know. Was there much sunshine?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Maybe. Before we get into discussing fatherhood, we'll discuss being a man in your 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have how do you feel your friends nowadays? Do you feel like they're mostly dads? I feel like the older you get, you have a kid and it's almost like all my friends have dads, or all of my friends are dads now. I don't have many single friends anymore.
So, I'm 41 and a lot of the friends that I have from childhood, where I grew up in Illinois, they started families very early. So me being a 41-year-old with an almost 3-year-old, that's certainly different, where myself and my childhood friends are in different places in life. So that's kind of interesting. I think it's worked in my favor. I've gotten to see other people go through it and hang out with their kids. And now I feel pretty confident around, going into being a father. I felt that way. And then, the friends that I've made since moving to Colorado, less so so my wife and I lived in Denver for several years, and we moved up to Fort Collins in 2021. And Fort Collins, yes, definitely more of a family-oriented place. So a lot of the friends that I've been making here are also parents. Denver, less so. But I see a lot of those friends trending in that direction, these days.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I am older, and I was single well into my 30s. So that left a lot of space for me to continue to make new friends. And
okay. Yeah.
I tended to meet friends at shows late at night.
Yeah.
Those places where parents don't tend to be, right?
Not so much.
Yeah. I speak from experience now.
Yes. No, I'm from Indiana. I'm from Southern Indiana, or Evansville, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And yeah, having my first kid at 28 felt like I was behind like my other friends.
Yeah.
Because I had one friend who I think got married at 21. No, he got married at 20 because they couldn't have alcohol at his wedding. And then by the time he was 28, he already had 3 kids.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, I got married at 25, which in that friend group, I was late to get married. And I'm like, I shouldn't have been married before 25.
No, me neither. Totally. And that's a hard thing. There again, like with the pressure, I remember feeling a fair amount of oh man, that's what I should be doing. And then, then I kind of broke out of that thinking of like comparing myself to others. That allowed me to be happy for everyone else and pursue what's right for me in life, and that turned out to be lots of things, a lot, just a variety of things once I kind of opened my mind up that way.
Yeah. But I mean, it takes a while. I think growing up in the Midwest, I don't want to say it's embedded in you, but a lot of that, like you get out of college and you start a family is pretty it's in you. You acknowledge that you're not part of normal whenever you aren't that, I guess is the kindest way to put it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that's objectively true.
When is that why you had kids later? Because you met your wife later on in life?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I did know that much, that if I were going to have that parent experience, I wanted it to be, like very much like someone that I knew we were going to be able to make things work pretty well. Yeah. And, it took a lot of travel and experience and, putting myself out there. And I met Olivia, my wife, as interning in Denver while in grad school, and she had just moved there. That was 2015. And I forget what your question was.
Just is that part of why? Because you had a kid at what, like 38 or so,
right? Yeah.
Was the journey of waiting to find the right person, for lack of a better way to put it, was that part of why it took you, why you had kids later on?
Yeah, I wanted that. I was looking for the right person, and I just kind of eventually was like, well, that'll happen eventually, and it'll happen at the right time. And once I spent some time in Denver, and it was like a couple months in, boom, I met her and we went to a show together, and we just kept in contact, and that's awesome. It was great. Definitely.
Cool.
That's what I was looking for.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where all have you lived? Did you live in Nashville for a while?
No.
Okay.
I did. It was in consideration. So I grew up in Illinois, kind of the Quad City area. Pretty much I've just lived there, I would make trips to Nashville pretty frequently through my 20s to hang out with some good friends, Margot and Jeremy. I around the time when I was starting to think going back to school as like a early 30s year old, Nashville was in consideration, and it was kind of like, where can I get into grad school? And then I'll think about where I want to live.
It's a good step one.
But right. Yeah. I was like, oh, you have to be able to have money to move somewhere.
Oh, yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird how that works out. Yeah. And usually grad schools help with that process. So,
30 years old, I figured that out. Yeah.
Yep.
But, I spent, better part of 3 decades in Illinois, and just, I did do undergrad in that area. Didn't really turn into much, like marketing, whatnot. And
where'd you go? Where'd you go for undergrad?
Western Illinois University.
Oh,
That's
okay.
in Macomb, Illinois, a town where the student body outnumbers the town population by about 3 times, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, and after undergrad, man, I just like kind of did random stuff, like worked on farms, moved to the Quad Cities. So that's like Rock Island, Illinois, and like worked at a casino, for like, geez, a few years anyways. Like a riverboat casino.
Yeah.
Like right
No,
on the river.
Evansville had the Casino Astar growing up. So one of my friends turned, I think, 21 on like a Wednesday, and his birthday was in January. So we went to the boat to celebrate on a Wednesday in January at like 9 p.m. And I now know what true sadness looks like.
I've stared it in the face, my friend.
Yeah, as certainly. They smoked cigarettes and did the penny slots. Yes.
Yeah. So luckily, after I started working at the casino right after the smoking ban.
Oh, that's nice.
Which worked well for me. Yeah. Yep. But people, I think some people suffered chronic conditions from being exposed to that for so long. Yep. Some of my coworkers, but really fun. That was a fun job, man. That was like,
I bet you have some interesting stories from working at a casino in the Midwest. Sure, yes.
Geez, the people that come in and out of a casino every night, let alone the people that work there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting culture for sure.
Yeah. Where'd you end up going to grad school at, and what did you study?
So I went to grad school at St. Ambrose University, and that's in Davenport, Iowa. So just across the river from where I was in Rock Island. And I studied speech language pathology. I did a master's degree in speech language pathology. That was a 2-year degree. 1 year I spent in Davenport going to campus, and then the second year was like internships. So that's when I came to Denver. I spent 3 months there, and then 3 months back in Peoria, Illinois, at a trauma 1 center, like working with adults post-stroke and, like some pretty intense medical needs. So yeah, it was a 2-year program, and I finished that in 2016 and immediately moved back to Denver.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about speech pathologists. Tell me about like what that career looks like. Like I only think of it for like kids and making sure kids like know how to speak correctly. I would have never have thought that like a stroke victim who's relearning how to speak would be someone who would work with also.
Yeah, right. So with the adults, it's like stroke can cause like difficulties with communicating and swallowing, which falls under the speech language pathology scope. But what I do, working in the schools now, and this will be my 8th year, is more of that developmental language and like articulation, like the speech sounds, and then also like functional language. So I have one school, I work with preschoolers up through 5th grade, and it can be anything from like saying certain sounds wrong, which is like kind of your typical thought. It can be like more expressive language, so like just overall vocabulary knowledge, due to whatever like hasn't developed. Oftentimes it's like a lack of exposure because of social, economic status disparities and things like that. And then also there's like specific disabilities that lend themselves to speech and language difficulties, like autism, being like that functional language piece. Some of the higher functioning autistics have like a lot of this vocabulary, and they have like their speech sounds, but just plugging in language functionally to use with others, that's really what autism is a difficulty with social language. So that's another area that I can work on. And it's not an easily defined field.
Yeah.
And which I love. I've come to love, definitely. It's just kind of like well, you can't be an expert in everything, right? You know, so you learn through experience as you keep going. And like, I had a great grad school experience to build upon. And yeah, I feel like I barely understand my scope. And then the people that I work with, you know, totally don't, you know, that like, I don't know what they think I do sometimes, you know. But,
are there other speech pathologists in the school system you're in, or is it kind of just you?
Yeah, no. So in Fort Collins here, we have a department of speech language pathologists, otherwise known as SLPs. We have a department of like 30 to 40. So like a lot of people have 1, 2, maybe 3 schools sometimes. When I worked in Denver, a very large metropolitan district, that was a department of like 100 speech language pathologists, you know. And we would still have like 4 schools apiece, right? You know, it was just like, that was very, very different up down there in Denver for sure. So yeah, not just me, and that's nice too. I have a community that I can lean on when I'm not sure what the right treatment is, or you know,
Do you, since you have like a 3-year-old, I would imagine that profession would be, you almost know too much.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do a pretty good job of balancing it even at work. My son Desmond he'll be 3 in January, and when like the early months, you know, like around 12 months and stuff, I felt like I just used all the strategies that I learned and that I would teach to parents in like a home health setting for like early intervention. You know, I just used all those strategies to help him develop his language, you know? So like, I kind of just leaned into it, honestly. And like, but when I say like, I have the healthy balance, it's like, also you don't want to badger little kids, you know, to be like, well, you didn't say it right. Try it again, you know, like, I don't do that. And I don't do that at work either, you know, like, I try there's this idea of like setting people up for success from the get-go, right? You know, and we learn from our mistakes, ideally. So a lot of it is just modeling. You know, that's how kids learn, right? They learn from what they see. So it's less about me making someone say, or my son say something, and more about me just like saying it my way a couple extra times, and him hearing it more and more, basically.
How are you? I feel like that's not a common approach to things. I feel like normally as a parent, it's easy to think, no, you do it correctly. How are you with like mess in general? Because that's a messier way to approach it, is like, hey, you're saying that word wrong. Cool. I'm going to say it the correct way more times and like over enunciate it, knowing that leaks into your subconscious basically, and then you'll get it eventually. But there's always a pull to be like, no, you're wrong to anyone who does something wrong.
Yep, I just avoid that. I try to, you know, and it's funny because it really does go together with being a parent of a toddler too. Like, one of the first things I had to learn being an SLP was to talk less, right? And just sit back and like let them do the talking, you know, and then model it back to them or rephrase what they said. Because you want to just follow a child's lead in general, right? You know, you can't really make them be interested in anything. So you kind of just have to like follow what they're interested in that moment. And it might change in 10 seconds too, right?
Sadly, yes. So that's more the approach, is letting the kid lead, but like, it's I hate wording like this because it makes it seem like you're still like the authority, but it is like you let the kid lead, but with the knowledge that like, you know, the correct path, right?
We facilitate, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's hard to, I think it's very easy to get stuck in the right and wrong mindset. And so I have to like shift myself to be like, no. Treat your kid like they're a little scientist, basically. And they're just doing hypothesis at all times. They're trying something out. it might not work this way, as long as they're safe, like within reason. Mm-hmm. But it's just so different than like when you work a job, you usually don't get time to experiment. You're asked to do something correctly. So to shift your mind to a kid so they can explore more is a practice.
It is, yeah. And yeah, right and wrong. I feel like that is something that I've, for a long time, I'm not tempted to really think that way.
Nice.
It doesn't matter. Right and wrong is kind of a myth, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you weren't raised with Lutheran guilt or Catholic guilt or anything?
Nope, straight up Methodist.
Oh man,
like the watered down Methodist stuff. like.
Yeah. Yep. Well, lucky you.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen, I just always think of the Martin Luther quote. Well, that's basically like, we are the snow on the pile of manure, and that's what humanity is.
Right. Yeah.
So, not the strongest belief in humankind. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, I was raised by parents, who grew up in the 60s, and they had a strong distrust of organizations in general. So that I definitely did enjoy.
That helped? Okay. Yeah. Nice. That's really cool. You're the first speech pathologist we've talked to. So I feel like it's something that not every school offers. And I feel like it's always in the back of my head, not with my kids, but just oh, how would I know if my kid needs help with speaking and stuff? I think it ends up correcting itself, but yeah. That's interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I really do enjoy it. And the school district I've ended up working for, I'm lucky to be a part of. Definitely. It's been a long journey to find, again, the right place in life here. And for sure.
I'll switch it a little bit to discuss, because if your kid is about to turn 3, did you guys get pregnant during the pandemic?
Yeah, towards the end, it would have been.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was
I'm gonna make you process your birthing experience and pregnancy experience during one of the most stressful, anxious times in history.
Hey, it actually made me feel a lot better about things.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, Olivia was about to apply to grad school. We were thinking about selling our house, and I really needed a job change. And we were talking about moving to Fort Collins, and all of these things were discussions. And we had already decided we were going to put our house on the market. And I come home from work, and she's like, "Oh, hey,
guess what?"
Yeah, guess what? And ecstatic, obviously. But yeah, that would have been the spring of 21, right?
Yeah.
So we were still in the thick of it. A lot of schools were still remote, and so that was a whole thing. We both of us, while she's pregnant, so she started grad school. We found a new job in Fort Collins. We bought a house, me not having a job yet here.
Okay.
I got my job and started a new job. So it was just a lot all at once, just to get ready to have this kid, basically, too, and stressful, but not it was great, it
nice.
was we immediately were whoa, this was probably a good choice. Fort Collins is really suiting us immediately, and it's so easy to take it's so easy to go places, and we see other people with their kids everywhere. It's just, it made the thought of that transition more accessible to me, and
no, definitely. I think living in this neighborhood, and our kid, I have a 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and we go to the school we're zoned for. And at the bus stop, other kids are girls' age and in their classes. And we're like, oh, this is just kind of a natural fit.
Yep.
This feels very good. It's
good.
Sometimes life deals you a card and you're like, I think this was the right move.
Right on.
All right. How do I live in this positivity?
I know. Yeah. When is the other shoe going to drop soon?
Where's that other shoe? Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And your kids are how old?
8, 6, and 3. So 2 daughters, they're older, and my son is 3.
Okay,
so
nice.
I stay home with him. So
sweet.
Yeah,
That's
very
so
lucky.
cool, man. So
it is, yeah.
So my wife just finished grad school. She's starting a new job as a nurse practitioner like this week.
Oh, nice. Did she go to CSU?
She went to CU and Schutz.
Okay.
Like the Aurora campus, but she did it remotely and whatnot from here in Fort Collins. Cool. But we had a gap in childcare on Tuesdays, and I was like, maybe I could spend Tuesdays with Desmond. So I reached out to my boss, last like a few months ago, and we were able to make that happen. So now I'm
that's awesome.
on Tuesdays and get to hang out with him, which is
that's really cool,
really incredible. Like, yeah.
Well, it's also really smart of your company because, like, you presented a need, and your company said, or the school district said, "Sure, we'll help you meet your needs," and you're like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you." Like, that's not a guarantee,
right? Yeah, I mean, and we would have figured it out. We would have had to pay someone way more for like one day
pretty much
of care, and also, like, I don't know. I feel like at this age, it's very important to have that extra time if you are able to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I just jumped at it immediately. I was like, "Oh yeah, let's
cool.
do that."
That's awesome. Well, have you started doing that yet, or is that something that's about to start?
Yep, I've been doing it. So like, yesterday, we like, wake up, hang out a little bit, watch a cartoon or two, and put the bike, his little scooter bike in the truck and drive to a park and just like do a long walk and look at birds and stuff. And like throw rocks in the water. And, like look at all the horse poop everywhere.
Yep. Isn't it crazy how much, because my son, like, he turned 3 in September, so pretty similar age. Mm-hmm. And he like just loves throwing rocks into water.
Yep.
And I know it's because I probably walked up and said, "Oh, hey, watch this." And because I just naturally inherently did it. Uh-huh. And a 3-year-old makes you just notice how simple joy can be basically at all times, and how much like I'm too needy. Like I should, like how many times I'm like, "Hey man, this is bringing your son extreme joy." Yeah. It can bring you joy also if you'd let it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And that is hard too. Like just to like take a deep breath and like look around and see where you're actually at instead of worrying about where you're going to be tomorrow or whatever. Yep. And, I can do it sometimes, right? Like certainly not all the time. No. But I want to hold on to that skill for sure. So this is a good venue to continue, to say it out loud.
Right? Because that helps.
Yeah, speak it into existence.
Fort Collins is super like biker friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like biker mecca.
That's what I thought, because isn't like the dude dad guy trying to get like a new bike park built out there?
Yeah, so like I somewhat know who that is. My wife
you're fine.
Videos of him. But yeah, we live right by one of the main bike trails that kind of parallels the railroad tracks. And we're pretty far from downtown. Can be there in like 15 minutes on a bike, whereas it's like 30 minutes sometimes driving, right? And there's a pretty elaborate trail system that I'm still learning. I'm trying to get more into biking for sure, because it's just better for so many reasons.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the dude dad. That's funny. One of the parks that we live by, like just a couple blocks away, I was walking our dog one evening, and I was like, "Oh, that's a nice Tacoma." Here the park, and the license plates said "Dude Dad." I'm like, I bet that's actually him.
Is that him?
He's just hanging out in the park, probably.
Probably. Yeah. He did like a big ad campaign sometime in last year, being like, "Fort Collins needs a new bike park. Here's why we need a new bike park." Yeah, so nice. He's all for him.
Yeah, and everywhere you go here, like bikes all over the place. Yeah. It's kind of like, I know the Midwest has like Madison is supposedly like the biker mecca, right? And I think Fort Collins is trying to be like that anyways. And I don't know about you, growing up in the Midwest, nothing pissed people off more than bikers on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like just hardcore rage out of people that I thought were like my friends. Jesus, dude, like calm down. It's just a bike.
They're just on a bike. I remember because I had friends who like would live out in the country and they'd have like mopeds or 4-wheelers and we'd drive them like on not the highway, but like the state roads that you could drive like 60 on.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, people would drive by you while you're on a moped, like just furious at you. And you're like, I'm on the shoulder. Yeah. Like, I don't like, you have 2 lanes over here. Like, why do you, I'm like 16 trying to not be inside play video games all day for once. And this is why I'm going to go do that instead.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to go back to playing, going to go back to playing GoldenEye. Yeah. That's fine.
No one spits at me when I'm in my basement playing 16.
Yeah, for some reason. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I skateboarded a lot as a kid. So I feel like I'd get that also of like skateboarding around on like a longboard or something. And people just looking at you like, what are you doing here? And you're like, being a teenager? Right. I don't know.
Yeah. This is called a skateboard. Have you seen this one before?
This one is longer than normal ones.
Yeah. So.
Oh man. That's cool. I'm glad you get the Tuesday once a week. That's I don't know. That's how I kind of analyze being a stay-at-home parent is that like I don't think I'll ever look back and be like, man, if I would have made more money in the 5 to 6 years I was a stay-at-home parent, we would be so much better off. It'll always be like, oh man, I'm glad we were in a place in which I was able to stay home because just my wife works from home also. Mm-hmm. So like there's a lot of times in which like she comes up for lunch, she hangs out with me and our son, and then she goes back to work while I put him down for a nap. And like, it's just, it's lucky. It's genuinely lucky and just gratitude, you know?
Yeah, that's so cool. You know, like I've said that before, like, if we could do it, I would just stay home all the time. Mm-hmm. And inside I'm like, can you actually do that though? Like, because I think that's tough, right? Like that's gotta be like day in, day out. Like that is not, it's fun, but there's work involved too, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like whenever my wife travels for work and people would be like, oh, isn't it so nice to travel and like get away? And she's like, like I'm mostly in a conference center. Like I'm not like in Vegas eating out, like going to casinos. She's like, no, I go to the meetings I'm supposed to go to. Yeah. I go eat dinner somewhere that I'll never ever see again. I get back on the plane, all with the full knowledge of like, I'm not with my family. Yep. So like, are there some fun parts to it? Yeah, it's nice to eat a fun meal that you don't have to pay for it. But like, I don't want to over like glorify or like overly like, oh, I'm so grateful to be a stay-at-home dad, but also not be like, oh, it's so hard. Cause like it's I'm sure you felt this before of like 1 hour, you're like, this is the best decision I've ever made. Then the next hour, you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, like where everything you do incites rage from basically a little toddler.
Yep. Yep. And you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, the last time we did this exact same formula, because I'm a nerd, so I think of things like formulas of like, okay, if I do this, then this result normally happens. Yeah. And so, because I think that's how things usually work.
You're not wrong.
So like, yeah. So like when you do that with kids, so it's like, okay, I handed you the bowl of spaghetti. Last time you asked for seconds, like within 5 seconds and you ate all of it. Today you threw it on the ground and laughed at me. So what the catalyst was this, the result was, I don't like this result.
Right.
How do I get back to the good result knowing that I can't control anything all at the same time?
And lesson learned. And
lesson learned.
And that is the lesson, definitely.
It is the lesson.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like formulas, routines, like there's a lot of power in those, but we can't make it happen. You know?
It's a weird, I feel like I've looked into more like Zen practices as I get older, just because it's reality of like, hey, what could you control in this moment? What did you do? And how did people react? What can you control about yourself? Because that's the only thing you can control. Right. And that's almost like a daily thing with kids. It's like, why didn't your kid want to do this? Because they're human and they have their own willpower and their own desires. Yep. What does that mean? Be kind.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Right.
That's all that means.
Because however you respond to them doing something differently will also be how they respond to someone else who does something differently, right? You know?
Yep.
So,
It's when people speak of like the unspoken burden of being a parent. That's what I was. No. The unspoken burden isn't like I have to have dinner on the table. I have to pick them up. It's like, no, who you naturally are is what they think normal is.
Yeah.
And that is terrifying.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So
it is definitely.
Yep. Driving around with your kids in the back seat, and then you just have any reaction. Anyone like, oh, that's how I should treat people on the road, and you're like, no, it was a reaction. So it was an isolated event that happens daily. So it's not really
right. Yeah,
an isolated event.
Hardly isolated for sure.
Hardly isolated. But I'm gonna justify this real hard.
Yeah. Heaven forbid you get on I-25 at the wrong time.
Dude,
yeah, it's game over, man.
It is. We live super close to 470, so we're able to avoid 25 for the most part. 470 still has some fun moments, but it's not. 25 scares me. Before we moved here, Heather, my wife, was like, what do you like? What are some downsides? And I was like, if we live somewhere where we have to get on I-25 consistently, that genuinely scares me.
Yeah. So when we lived in West Denver, I worked in Aurora for a couple of years.
Oh no.
And I would just go across town through Cherry Creek, and it added time. But after a while, I was just like, I'm not getting on there. People are too angry. It's dangerous. It is scary. I agree.
Yeah.
And that was
my
sure. I mean, one of my first eye-opening moments when I interned in grad school. I was driving to my school the first day, and got on I-25, and I hit the traffic, and I stopped, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be late. And as I'm looking at the time, the car next to me gets smashed from behind. Literally my first day driving to my internship.
Oh man.
And I was like, okay, cool. So
cool.
That's a thing every morning, apparently.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I think it is though. It legitimately is.
Yep, staying off of it is the right answer.
Yes. Well, I mean, Nashville had pretty bad traffic whenever I lived there, but it was tame. It wasn't reckless bad driving. Did you ever live in Chicago?
No.
Okay. I feel like I've driven in Chicago a couple of times, and it feels more like that type of driving where you're if there's an inch someone can take, they're going to take that inch and flip you off as they take that inch.
Yeah. How dare you be there?
Yeah.
How dare you travel at a safe distance behind someone?
Pretty much everything I learned in driver's ed was wrong. You should never leave space between you and the car in front of you, because then you're giving someone an opportunity.
Yeah. I just give them this, thumbs up.
Really sarcastic. Yeah. I do the big sarcastic thumbs up a lot. It's pretty good.
I'll show them.
Yeah. They'll look back in the rearview mirror and be like, that guy's weirdly positive. I need to stay away from him.
I'm waiting for my son to do that for the first time,
Nice.
Way to go, Dad.
Way to go. Has he
sarcastic already?
I would assume you've got some sarcasm in you, and I'm assuming your wife does also. Yeah. So
it'll happen.
It'll happen. Has he started copying anything you do, or started mimicking your phrases or anything where you're like, oh, I need to clean this up?
Oh yeah, for sure. He's thrown out some nonchalant, what the hell? Things like that make you reflect immediately.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I'm going to try my best, but also I'm also a believer that he's going to learn those things one way or the other, right? And I did, and it's kind of you have to have that knowledge, and also the knowledge that you just can't do that, Maybe we'll allow some of that in private, not as a 4-year-old, obviously, but also that's part of being in the world, is knowing how to code switch and knowing when you can talk one way and when you can talk another way, right? That's a good skill to have.
I remember the first time my 8-year-old daughter was like, I know a bad word. It starts with the letter F. And I'm like, cool. How'd you did someone at your school say it or something like that? She's like, oh, she told me the backstory of how she learned it. I was like, cool. Just so you know, if you say that word and people who hear you say that word, they'll probably be very mad upon hearing that word. So I know you know that word. That's cool. But if you say it and other people hear it and you get in trouble, I will probably look at you and say, yeah, you said you're always going to get in trouble if people hear you say this word at this age.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But I don't know. I also I'm a big believer of like Jamar Tisby is like a Black historian who talks mostly about like Christianity. He's really fascinating to read. He talks a lot about how like if you aren't willing to discuss something with your child, you're basically leaving the door open for someone else to have the discussion for you. Yep. And I find I would like to believe, my hope is that as a parent, to always be a place in which discussion is part of the relationship.
Right.
So if my kid comes up to me and says, I know a bad word starts with the letter F, and I'm saying, how dare you know that word? They're never going to talk to me again about anything like that.
Right. Yeah. That's great wisdom for sure. Again, it just comes down to like leaving space for those conversations and maybe not reacting the same way that someone might have reacted to you once upon a time. And that's tough. A lot has changed since 1980. Some things not so much, reason, but
Yes. Well, I think sadly we're all aware of like our traumatic experiences, and we're all just like, oh, if I can not instill that self-doubt into my child, that'd be great. I'll instill other bad things, but at least not the things I'm filled with. That'd be great.
Yep. There will be other mistakes for the next generation to grapple with.
It will be. There will be. How we end every episode is we ask every guest the same 5 questions.
Oh.
So you'll get to hear Jeremy's answers whenever you listen to his episode.
I knew there was going to be something that like, maybe I should have listened.
No, listen, we want your honest, genuine answers.
Yeah.
And if you would have given me prepared answers, I have the list of backup questions just in case I'm like, no, get this out of here. Okay.
Fair. Good.
So the first question is, did you have a backup name for your son? Like, did you have a name you almost named him?
Yeah. Funny story. Lucas. We really liked the name Lucas. And we knew that we wanted to go with a middle name that was like family related. My wife's dad, my father-in-law's name is Brian with a Y. And I had an uncle with the same Brian with a Y. So, and then we were like, oh, Luke Bryan. Maybe not. Nothing against. I don't know. I couldn't name one Luke Bryan song, but we were like, okay, never mind.
It's in the universe. That our middle child's name is Magnolia, and that's then after we named her, Joanne Gaines and Chip Gaines came out with the Magnolia line.
Okay,
so her name is freaking everywhere, and we're like, no, we aren't. Like, it's a fine show, but like we didn't name our kid after this couple who fixes up houses in Texas, guys. Like. Stop it.
Nothing new under the sun, man.
Nothing, man. Anyway, back to your story. But I understand the hesitation of like, is everyone going to think this?
Right. Yeah. But yeah, we went with Desmond. I came home with the epiphany one day. I had a student that I was working with who had that name at the time. And I was like, I kind of like that. I was floating around. And then Obla Di, Obla Da came on the radio, and I was like, I love that. That's cool. So that's cool. Why we went with Desmond.
You might be the first teacher. Almost any other person who's worked in schools or the wife has worked in schools has a list of names they can never name their child because of a student.
Yep.
So you're the first person I've ever heard of who's like, the student was actually pretty good. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For sure.
Next question. Do you have a favorite TV dad?
TV dad.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh man. Swirling around here. I had one that kind of like stuck out immediately, and I'm trying to see if there's a better one.
Who was the first one?
So, have you seen The Ranch?
No, I know what. Isn't that with like Ashton Kutcher?
Ashton Kutcher, and then Sam Elliott.
And like Sam Elliott, yeah.
Dad.
Okay,
he's like kind of a difficult like old farmer rancher guy, but like endearing, and I don't know. That was my first thought.
Okay.
I'll roll with it.
Just roll with it. Just keep going with it. Is The Ranch worth watching? I haven't watched it.
It's good. Yeah. It's entertaining. Okay. It's goofy. It's like that 70s show basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth watching.
Cool.
I liked it.
Yeah. It's always funny because like by the time we get our kids down to bed and then like we want to watch something, it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. My wife falls asleep between 9:30 and 10. So it's like you're trying to find something for this hour gap, which is fun, but also sometimes like, do you want to do the too serious and dark show, right, but also you don't want to go too campy. So
yeah, there's
something for every moment.
Sure. Or maybe like, is it Frank from Frasier? You know, Frasier's dad?
Yes.
Is that his name?
Yeah. I can't remember. What's his name? Sorry. Now just for my need to be accurate.
Sure.
Now I have to look it up.
Gosh.
Martin. Was it Martin Crane? Martin Crane.
Yes. Love him definitely too.
He was a fun TV dad.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Do you have a least favorite kids show? Like when Desmond watches it, you almost like want to walk out in the room, or you've like banned from him being able to watch them?
Yes. God, what? There is a show and I don't know the name of it.
Okay. That's how much you hate it?
Yeah.
You refuse to learn the name?
That doesn't exist. God, what is it called? He's super into monster trucks. Like monster trucks are back. Dude.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, they are. I don't get it, but they definitely are. Yes.
So it's like a monster truck show that's just like, I think it's even like Hot Wheels sponsored or something, you know, just like total brain rot, you know, just bad. And I don't even know the name of it. Some monster truck show.
There's more than one, and that's what's surprising to me. Because normally if someone's like, I don't like this show, I can figure it out. But like a monster truck kids show, and I'm like, oh, there's like 5.
Right.
I actually don't know which one it is.
So we made a mistake when he was real little, and we would just put on the TV and like a YouTube or something. And it was like these animations. So we thought of like trucks doing these different tasks, like backing a trailer in or like hauling things around. And turns out it was just like videos of people playing like a video game. And it's like it must be addictive because and it has no title, I don't think. He came up with his own title and called it Cars, Cars, Cars. And he'll still like ask for it. And we haven't allowed it since he was like freaking a year and a half, I think, you know, like, like it's still in there. That's how addictive some of that crap is, you know.
Man, like, YouTube is this.
No cars.
No,
never.
We've talked to a couple people who like have like, because YouTube is such a weird frontier for entertainment. Yeah. And like whenever your 8-year-old sits down with the remote, you're like, they even start to type in like My Little Pony or something like that. And even the suggestions that come up like can lead to questions from your kids.
Right.
And so like I've had at least a friend or two who are like, no. If they want to watch something on YouTube, we told them they can only do it on like this one day of the week. We have to be in the room the entire time because even the ads will be like, whenever I now hate scary movies because like whenever it's Halloween time, it'll be like an ad during like a yoga and it'll be like, who's dying this Halloween? And you're just like, what the fuck? This is like Cosmic Kids Yoga, guys. What is your ad block?
Figure this out. Yeah. Can we please talk about your marketing scheme a little bit?
A little bit. I don't know what algorithm you guys have running, but I'm not a fan.
Right.
Anyway, next question. Do you have a favorite kids toy or activity like that you actually like doing with Desmond a lot?
Activity or toy. I mean, I love like seeing him learn to ride his little scooter bike, you know, like that's probably, you know, that's kind of a pretty plain answer, but that's like, that's my favorite, you know, is just like go to the park and put him on the bike and go, you know, like, he has like a little mini drum set that's fun to watch him like
that's cool
thrash on, you know.
Yeah. That's cool.
And just like listening to music too. It's so fun to like see when he likes a song and he starts dancing and he'll look for you to start dancing to, you know, things like that. I don't know.
That's
pretty
cool.
Simple stuff, you know. Yeah.
It's honestly what every kid teaches you is that like there's so much beauty and simplicity and most of the time we like to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, right. For sure. Yeah.
Last question. Moment of your kid's life you're most excited to experience or be a part of?
I mean, I can't wait to see like how his personality continues to emerge, right? And like that kind of leads us to like what we do for fun, you know. For me, it was like play music, right? Like play the guitar, and write songs and stuff like that. So I guess like that's kind of a vague answer, but just to see like how he chooses to express himself in the world, you know, and like, because I think we all have like kind of special skills, right? And just like I want to see what that is for him, you know, because there will be something, right? And I can't wait to see what is like, I hate to say truly unique, but like kind of what his thing is, you know, like it probably won't be monster trucks, but maybe it will be.
It'll be cars.
Or maybe we'll circle around, right? Yeah.
Oh God, that would be a disappointing moment, but still a moment that you have to figure out.
Right. Like, just really passionate about it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love like I think a 3-year-old is like one of my favorite ages because they have like they have all of like the foundation of their personality, but they haven't built upon it yet because they're still so young, but they're actually getting more independent. So like when you have a 3-year-old, you're like, oh man, I'm starting to understand what brings you joy, and you can communicate that it brings you joy. And now it's like the opportunity to like help them basically. And you're helping your child like develop their personality and develop joy they find in themselves. And that's like just super lucky to be a part of.
Right. Yes, definitely. Yeah, like it's more than just like happy and sad, you know, like there's
screaming, not screaming.
Right, yeah. there's a lot more nuance, and I learn from it as well, you know, like secondhand. I'm continuing to learn some emotional intelligence by being a father, right?
Yep. Hopefully.
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally. Pretty much that's all I've got. If we like, you probably don't have much to self-promote for yourself, but if we wanted to follow you on Instagram or anything like that, we'll probably we'll link it to your Instagram. We'll do a post and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, we didn't even discuss like your side hobby of like making music and releasing on Bandcamp. So if you want to give any shout out to your alter ego as a musician, you could do that too.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, I've been writing since, you know, my friend Margot Price and Jeremy, like they've been real instrumental in like fostering that creative part of me, and like my other friends that I grew up with, you know, a friend Mark Hans, who kind of helped me create this persona, you know, this collective, we'll call it. I call it Wake the Bell. And that was something that my friend Mark came up with. And for the first 2 albums, it was a collaboration. And then the third one, it was we added Jeremy to the mix. So it was like me, Mark, and then Jeremy had a song on it. And then I just came out with the 4th Wake the Bell album, which, it's on Bandcamp. It's called Gone to Seed. And that it's kind of like a 10-year event for me, or you know, like
every 10 years you release an album.
Like totally, like more than 5 years I'll like sit with songs and like rehash them, and eventually get around to recording them, and eventually get around to like tinkering and mastering them, and it just takes forever, and I love it. Like that's just my process, right?
Cool.
So if anyone wants to go check that out, that would be something.
Cool. Yeah. I think in person, did you say, does your wife sing on any of the songs?
Yeah, she sang backup vocals on at least 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. Because I feel like Jeremy was like, hey, are you going to play any shows? And you're like, well, if you want my wife to sing on the songs, I kind of got to get a sitter so that she can come out and sing.
Right.
So kind of changes all of it. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Margot sang on on my second album, I guess.
Cool.
And I'm going to put the rest of those albums up on Bandcamp too. I just brought the CDs from our farm.
Did you?
In Illinois over the summer.
Cool.
And I'm like, one of these days I'm going to put all
You're going to get to
it.
You're going to get to it eventually. So
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm going to go check on the kids, see how everything's looking. But Jared, thank you a ton. I really appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for listening. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Nashville Dads. And make sure to follow us on anywhere you find your podcast. And please give us a 5-star rating. And thank you to Matt Oakes for providing the music for the episode. Catch you next time.